The operations center was chaos. Satellite feeds flickered across a dozen screens. Radio chatter filled the room with tense voices reporting failure. Major Coleman stood at the central command station, his jaw tight, his hands gripped on the edge of the table hard enough to turn his knuckles white. The mission had failed. Catastrophically. SEAL Team 7 had been on the ground for 18 hours. Their objective was simple in theory, impossible in execution. Extract a high-value intelligence asset from a compound deep in hostile territory. The asset was a former Taliban commander who'd turned, who had information about an imminent attack on American forces, who needed to be extracted before his former comrades discovered his betrayal and executed him. The SEALs had gone in, had breached the compound, had fought through 3 layers of security, had reached the target's location, and found it empty. The asset was gone, either moved or already dead. Intel had been wrong, or compromised, or outdated. It didn't matter which. The mission had failed. 3 SEALs were wounded in the extraction, 1 critically. They'd fought their way out under heavy fire, made it to the extraction point, were currently inbound on helicopters, returning to base empty-handed and bleeding. "What do we have on the asset's location?" Coleman demanded. He was addressing the intelligence team. 5 analysts hunched over computers, scanning satellite imagery, monitoring signals intercepts, tracking every piece of information they could find. "Nothing, sir," the lead analyst said. His name was Patterson. He looked exhausted. "The asset's last known location was the compound. We have no current intelligence on where he might have been moved." "Then find some. We need that asset. The intelligence he's carrying could save hundreds of lives." "Yes, sir." Coleman turned to his operations officer, Captain Sarah Webb. "What about our other assets? Do we have anyone in the area who could pick up the trail?" Webb checked her roster, scrolled through the list of available operators, stopped on one name, frowned. "Sir, we have 1 asset in the region, but she's not available for this mission." "Why not?" "She's deep cover, has been for 9 months. We can't pull her without compromising her assignment." Coleman's expression darkened. 3 American SEALs were just wounded trying to recover an asset that could prevent a mass casualty event. Contact her handler. Now. Before we continue, hit that subscribe button right now and stay with this story all the way to the end. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story reaches. Webb made the call, spoke quietly into a secure line, hung up a minute later. Her handler says she's been out of contact for 6 days. She's deep in Taliban-controlled area, operating completely black. No scheduled check-ins. He doesn't know her exact location. "So we can't reach her?" "No, sir. And he strongly advises against trying. Says it would expose her identity and likely get her killed." Coleman slammed his hand on the table. "Then she's useless to us." 2 hours later, the wounded SEALs arrived at the base. Medical teams rushed them to the field hospital. 2 had minor injuries. The third, a petty officer named Rodriguez, had taken shrapnel to his abdomen. He was in surgery immediately. The SEAL team leader, Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, reported to Coleman's office. He looked like hell, covered in dust and blood. His eyes were hollow. "Report," Coleman said. Morrison's voice was flat. "We breached at 0347 local time, encountered immediate resistance, neutralized 4 hostiles, found the room where the asset was supposed to be held. It was empty. Evidence suggested he'd been moved within 12 hours. We searched, found nothing. Extracted under heavy fire. Rodriguez took the hit. Mission failure, sir." Coleman nodded. "You did everything right, Commander." The intelligence was bad. That's not on you. 3 of my men are wounded. We accomplished nothing. You followed orders, executed perfectly. The failure is intelligence, not execution. Morrison didn't look convinced. What happens now? Your team is stood down for 72 hours. Rodriguez needs care. You all need rest. Morrison stood, stopped at the door. Sir, if he's still alive, he won't be for long. Taliban doesn't forgive betrayal. I know, Commander. We're working on it. The next morning, Coleman was reviewing intelligence reports when Captain Webb appeared at his door. Her expression was strange, somewhere between shock and disbelief. Sir, you need to come to the South Gate, now. What is it? You have to see it to believe it. Coleman followed Webb through the base. They moved quickly. Other personnel were heading in the same direction. Something was happening. They reached the South Gate. A crowd had formed, soldiers standing around staring, talking in low voices. Coleman pushed through the crowd, saw what everyone was staring at. A woman stood at the checkpoint, small, maybe 5'5", covered in dirt and blood that wasn't hers. Her dark hair was tied back. Her face was sunburned and scratched. She wore local clothing, a traditional Afghan dress and headscarf. She looked like she'd walked through hell. Next to her stood a man, middle-aged, also wearing local clothing. His hands were zip-tied. His face was bruised. He looked terrified and relieved. Coleman recognized the man immediately. Had been staring at his photo for 3 days, the high-value intelligence asset. The former Taliban commander. The man SEAL Team 7 had risked everything to extract. He was here, at the gate, brought in by someone Coleman didn't recognize. Coleman approached. Who are you? She looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. Lieutenant Kara Mitchell, sir. Special Activities Division. I believe you've been looking for this asset? Coleman stared. You're the deep cover operator, the one we couldn't reach. Yes, sir. How did you know we were looking for him? I didn't. I was tracking weapons when I overheard Taliban fighters discussing moving a prisoner. A high-value prisoner. I investigated. Discovered it was your asset. Realized he'd been moved hours before your team hit the compound. I extracted him myself. Coleman looked at the asset, then back at Mitchell. You extracted him yourself? Alone? Yes, sir. How? Mitchell's expression didn't change. I'd rather debrief in a secure location, sir. Coleman nodded. Captain Webb, take the asset to interrogation. Get him medical attention, then get him talking. Yes, sir. Webb gestured to 2 MPs. They took the asset away. Coleman turned back to Mitchell. Come with me. They walked to a secure briefing room. Mitchell moved with a slight limp. Her left leg was injured. Coleman closed the door, gestured for her to sit. Permission to clean up first, sir? I've been on the move for 36 hours. Haven't slept or eaten. Sit down, Lieutenant. You can clean up after you explain this. Mitchell sat. Slowly, like every muscle hurt. Start from the beginning, Coleman said. Why were you in the area? I've been embedded with a Taliban logistics cell for 9 months. My cover is a widow from Pakistan. Husband killed by American forces. I'm sympathetic to their cause. I've been helping them move supplies, building trust. 3 months ago, they included me in weapons shipments. My handler has been extracting intelligence. We've interdicted 4 major shipments based on my reports. And you overheard something about the asset? Yes, sir. I was at a compound in Khost Province, waiting for a shipment. Overheard 2 fighters talking about moving a prisoner. Someone important. A traitor working with Americans. I caught enough details. Recognized the name from intelligence briefings. Realized they were talking about your asset. How did you know we'd tried to extract him? I didn't. But I know how intelligence operations work. If we had someone important enough for Taliban to move under heavy security, we'd be trying to get him out. I assumed an extraction was made or planned. So you decided to extract him yourself? Yes, sir. Without orders, without backup, without telling your handler? Yes, sir. That's not how this works, Lieutenant. You don't go off mission. You don't risk 9 months of cover for one asset. Mitchell's expression hardened. Respectfully, sir. My orders are to gather intelligence and take action when opportunities present themselves. An opportunity presented itself. I took it. You risked your life, your cover, the entire operation. Yes, sir. And I'd do it again. That asset has information that could save American lives. That's more important than my cover. More important than my operation. More important than me. Coleman studied her. She meant every word. Tell me how you did it. Mitchell's voice was calm, factual. I tracked the prisoner to a compound north of coast. Small facility. 8 fighters. They were holding him in a back room. I waited until nightfall, observed their security patterns. 2 guards on rotation, 1 at front entrance, 1 roaming perimeter, weak coverage, predictable. You observed this alone? Yes, sir. From a hillside overlooking the compound. Watched for 6 hours, learned their routine. And then? At 0200 hours, I moved in. Perimeter guard was on the far side. Front guard was smoking. Distracted. I approached from the blind side, entered through a window, found the asset in a back room. 2 guards with him, both armed. Coleman waited. I neutralized both guards, quietly, hand to hand. Couldn't risk gunfire. Would alert the compound. Secured the asset. Explained who I was. He was injured but mobile. We exited through the window. Moved to my extraction point. A vehicle I'd positioned 2 kilometers away. Drove through the night. Made it here. She said it so matter-of-factly, like it was simple. Coleman shook his head. You make it sound easy. It wasn't easy, sir. It was necessary. You killed 2 men. Yes, sir. Have you killed before? Yes, sir. This wasn't my first field operation. Coleman pulled up her file on his tablet. Most of it was classified, redacted. But he could see the outline. Special Activities Division. Multiple deployments. Multiple commendations. Operations whose details were sealed. You were in Yemen 3 years ago. An operation went wrong. You killed 6 hostiles while wounded. Held your position until extraction. That's correct, sir. Coleman closed the file. You have a history of doing impossible things. I've been lucky, sir. Luck doesn't explain this. Luck doesn't explain extracting an asset from a Taliban compound alone. Mitchell said nothing. The SEALs are going to want to meet you. The team that tried to extract the asset. With respect, sir, I'd rather not. I need to maintain operational security. The fewer people who know who I am, the safer I am. Your cover is already compromised. You extracted an asset the Taliban wanted dead. They'll figure out someone got him out. Your network is burned. Mitchell's expression tightened. Yes, sir. My handler will have to pull me. 9 months of work gone. Was it worth it? She didn't hesitate. Yes, sir. If the asset's intelligence saves even 1 American life, it was worth it. Coleman stood. Get cleaned up. Get medical attention for that leg. Get food and rest. We'll debrief fully in 6 hours. Yes, sir. Mitchell stood, limped toward the door, stopped. Sir, the SEALs who were wounded, how are they? 2 will be fine. The 3rd is in surgery. Still uncertain. Mitchell nodded. If they'd gotten to the compound 6 hours earlier, they would have found the asset. The timing was just off. That's not their fault. They executed perfectly. You should tell them that. Mitchell shook her head. They don't need to hear from me, sir. They need to hear from their commander. She left. Coleman sat alone. Thought about what had just happened. Thought about a lieutenant who'd accomplished alone what a SEAL team couldn't. Who'd thrown away 9 months of cover to save one asset. 6 hours later, Coleman convened a debrief. Mitchell was there, cleaned up, wearing fresh fatigues. Her leg had been treated. Minor shrapnel wound. Also present were Captain Webb, the intelligence analysts, and Lieutenant Commander Morrison. Coleman had invited Morrison despite regulations. The SEAL commander deserved to know how the mission had succeeded. Lieutenant Mitchell, Coleman began, walk us through the operation. For the next hour, Mitchell described everything. Her 9 months undercover, the overheard conversation, her surveillance, the extraction. When she described neutralizing the guards, Morrison interrupted. How did you take them both down without alerting the compound? First guard was sitting, distracted. I came from behind, chokehold. He lost consciousness in 10 seconds. Silent. Second guard heard something, turned. I closed distance before he could react, disarmed him. Close quarters combat, down in 30 seconds. You killed them? Yes, Commander, had to. Couldn't risk them raising alarm, Morrison nodded. Taking down 2 armed hostiles silently, alone, is not something most people can do. I was trained for it, Commander. Same as you. Were you scared? Everyone looked at Mitchell. Yes, Commander. I was terrified. Fear keeps me alive, keeps me sharp. If I stop being afraid, that's when I'll die. Morrison looked at her with respect. The asset. How was he? Injured. They'd been interrogating him, but conscious, mobile. I explained who I was. He understood, cooperated fully. Webb interjected. We've been interrogating him. The intelligence is solid. There's an attack planned. Vehicle-borne IED targeting a convoy route. We've changed patrol routes. The attack will fail because we know it's coming. Coleman looked at Mitchell. You saved American lives, Lieutenant. Dozens, maybe more. Mitchell didn't smile. That's the job, sir. That's beyond the job. So did Commander Morrison and his team. They executed perfectly. The intelligence was wrong. That's not their fault. Morrison spoke quietly. We thought we'd failed. Rodriguez is still in surgery. I've been thinking we accomplished nothing. You accomplished the mission, Commander. Your operation forced the Taliban to move the asset. That movement created the window I used. If you hadn't hit that compound, they might have kept him locked down. Your operation made mine possible. Morrison looked at her. Is that true? Yes, Commander. Your team succeeded. Just not the way you expected. Coleman could see the weight lifting from Morrison's shoulders. Lieutenant Mitchell, Coleman said, you're being recommended for a commendation. Mitchell shook her head. I'd prefer no commendation, sir. I work better when nobody knows who I am. It's going forward whether you want it or not. The debrief continued. Mitchell answered every question. By the end, the analysts had information that would disrupt enemy operations for months. When it was over, Coleman dismissed everyone except Mitchell. What happens to you now? My cover is burned. I'll be pulled, reassigned, probably back to headquarters. How do you feel about that? Relieved? Exhausted. I spent 9 months building that network. It's all gone now. Not wasted. You saved lives. I know, sir, but it's hard not to think about what I could have accomplished with more time. You'll get another assignment. You're too good at this. Mitchell nodded. Maybe I've been doing this too long. Do you believe that? No, sir, but I probably should. Coleman smiled. Get some rest, Lieutenant. You've earned it. Mitchell stood, saluted, started to leave. Lieutenant, Coleman said, the SEALs were sure you were dead when we couldn't contact you, when you were in Taliban territory. We assumed the worst. But I wasn't, sir. No, you walked in here alive, carrying the target everyone thought was lost. You're one of the best operators I've ever seen. But you're also human. You can't do this forever. At some point, you'll hit your limit. When that happens, I hope you'll recognize it. When I reach my limit, I'll know, sir. Will you? Operators like you never think they've reached their limit. Don't sacrifice everything for this job. Mitchell was quiet. Respectfully, sir, it is worth it. This job, these operations, the lives we save, it's worth everything. Because if people like me don't do this work, who will? She left before Coleman could answer. He sat alone, thought about her question. Someone had to do this work. Someone had to go into the dangerous places. Someone had to take the risks. And people like Mitchell were the ones who did it. Who volunteered for impossible missions. Who went deeper and stayed longer than anyone should have to. They were heroes. The ones who operated in shadows. Who never got recognition. Who saved lives nobody would ever know about. And they were also slowly destroying themselves. Burning out. Breaking down. Giving everything until nothing was left. Coleman hoped Mitchell would recognize her limit before she reached it. But he'd seen too many operators burn out completely, seen too many end up broken. The work demanded everything. And people like Mitchell gave it willingly. Heroes and tragedies, every one of them. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. Moving forward when everything screams to stop. Taking risks nobody else will take because someone has to. The operators who work in shadows understand this. They live with fear every day. But they don't let it stop them. They use it to stay sharp, stay alive. And when the moment comes, they act. Without hesitation, without backup, without certainty. They do what needs to be done because lives depend on it. That's what Lieutenant Mitchell did. Threw away 9 months of cover because one asset needed extracting. Walked into danger alone because nobody else could. Carried the target back because failure wasn't an option. That's the cost of heroism. Not recognition or glory, but sacrifice. Complete sacrifice. Everything you have given willingly to a cause that will never acknowledge you.